remains that my life in which I want to, I must look for somebody who is called a guru. That is why you can see in the West, they talk about gurus, following the guru, becoming a disciple of a guru. A guru is an expert who has had the first-hand experience himself and is an expert in that line in which we want to develop ourselves. So, common sense, reason, and first-hand knowledge, once the theosophical student is well satisfied with this, then one is sure that now one is on the right track. When we look, where do we find, because Samadhi is there throughout literature, how do we find somebody who has had the experience and we can be well sure that that person is speaking from one's own experience and is trustworthy? We don't have to look very further. Our own leader, Dr. Annie Besant, she herself was first-hand experienced person of Samadhi. She had process. She was an initiate, a Paramhansa. She was the disciple, a high initiate of the masters of our wisdom. So the masters of wisdom whom we try to follow, she was a disciple of those masters, and she gave us this concept of Samadhi through the book called An Introduction to Yoga. In 1908, it was published by the Theosophical Society itself. And it will be to know that in July of 1907, she became the second president, international president of the Theosophical Society, after the death of the first founder president, Colonel Henry Scale Olcott. So, in the same year, in December, in the International Convention, on 28th, 29th, 30th, and 31st December, she spoke of 19 become the international president. She spoke, she gave 4 lectures, and those lectures was compiled into a small book which she herself published the next year, and it was called An Introduction to Yoga. That was the first edition which came out in 1908, and it has never been edited ever again since those years. So 1908 to 2021, there was no further editions, only reprints. She was the president till 1933, and in whole of that period, the book was in print. She never edited it, which shows that whatever she spoke and whatever is printed in that book held true for her, and she felt no reason to even edit it. Therefore, for me, that becomes a very valid book to study and understand. Now, in that book, she gives us very important concept of Samadhi, and which, as I will go further, I hope you can see the slides as I've changed into a new slide. Taneja, you can see this now?
Yes, it is visible now.
Okay, so thank you. Now, in the same book, when she spoke in front of the Theosophical brothers and sisters, she says yoga in the preface, in the foreword of that book, yoga is, and later she says yoga is Samadhi. So we come to know that Samadhi is equivalent to yoga, and yoga itself is a science of sciences. Therefore, it is a scientific concept. Samadhi is a process in which there is no question of any grace or any luck. It is a concept just like any science is. So if we add 2 and 2 together to obtain Samadhi, all we have to do is to gather all the ingredients together and then join them together, and then we will have Samadhi. Therefore, it is a very valid scientific concept. This is what she wanted to bring out, and she brought it out. Now she said one more thing, because she was talking about yoga, and the samadhi as a concept has come out in yoga the most. Although samadhi is also mentioned in Buddhist scriptures elsewhere, but samadhi, when we talk about samadhi, it is usually thought about in terms of yoga. The word samadhi comes so many times in yoga, it is central to the yoga philosophy. We already know that there are 6 schools of philosophy in India. Sankhya, Vedant, and Yoga are well known. The other 3, Nyaya, Mimamsa, and Vaishshikha, are less well known. Of course, in the series of lectures that she gave, she did this, give the merits and demerits, the limitations of Sankhya. She talked about what Vedanta says, especially in the second lecture. On Vedanta, the limitations of Vedanta, and what is yoga, and what is theosophical concept. We will not discuss that, but she says that the general have been discussed in 2 texts. One is the Bhagavad Gita, and the other are the Upanishads in general. So that is the general description of yoga, she says. Then she says only in 3 other texts, special consideration to yoga, or special way or treatment to yoga has been given, or we can say special literature of yoga has been revealed in 3 texts in the Indian subcontinent. And the first are the minor Upanishads, the 108 Upanishads, the Tantras, the Tantric literature. And she says that the Tantric literature is very useful, valuable, and it contains all the occult sciences. The only caution that she talks about in the Tantric literature is that without an experienced guru, like we said, without somebody who has first-hand knowledge and can teach properly, Tantra should not be dealt into. It deals used to bring about foreseen results by using the various forces of nature. So she calls that as magic. And she says there are 3 types of magic: white magic, black magic, and grey magic. And the third place where she says that there are the special literature of yoga is given, and that are the Sutras of Patanjali, the chief treatise on yoga. So from this we understand that Dr. Annie Besant had a yogi, and that she said that yoga is samadhi, and that special treatment, or let's say the whole yoga literature especially, has been given in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And she will now we'll go further and see what she has to say further on samadhi. She makes a statement that the crown of the king, emperor, the triumph of earthly power, are less than nothing to the man who has had one glimpse of the majesty of the self. It's a very powerful statement. She says even one glimpse, one experience of that self, of that Jivatma, that is more valuable than becoming the ruler of this earth. And what is our aim? What is the end of this human evolution? What is the goal? It is to reach to that self-realization. And how can we do that? It has to be done through the process of samadhi. So we understand that to achieve our goal of human evolution, the theosophical student knows that we have to complete this human journey. We require a process of samadhi, or to undergo this process, and for that, what do we have to do? We'll come to that. So let us first understand what exactly HPB and Annie Besant have said in terms of definition, because they had to concise and give something in pocket size so that people would get some idea what is Samadhi. Of course, this is not the complete thing. We'll go further into it, but we must know this. What HPB glossary. Madam Blavatsky says, Samadhi is a state of ecstatic and complete trance. The term comes from the words sam and adha, self-possession. He who possesses this power is able to exercise an absolute control over all his faculties, physical or mental. It is the highest state of yoga. Besant says, Samadhi is derived from the root dha, to place, with the prepositions sam and a, meaning completely together. Therefore, it means fully placing together. And in English, we can just translate it as composing the mind, collecting it together, checking all distractions. It is a state in which the consciousness is so dissociated from the body that the latter remains insensible. The mind is fully self-conscious, though the body is insensitive, and from which the mind returns to the body with the experiences it has had in the super-physical state, remembering them when again immersed in the physical brain. So let's not get confused with these words. We'll go further into details and we'll understand each and everything what they have said. The structure of man. We know that we have the physical body, the astral body, and the mental body. These three combine together and they have been called the personality. This personality is temporary. It is an incarnation which the higher self or the ego, composed of the causal body, the buddhic body, and the atmic body, that takes through these, and once the incarnation is over, all these three lower bodies, the physical, astral, and the mental, they dissolve. And in the next cycle of incarnation, they are again made or taken up by the higher self or ego. Beyond these bodies is the monad or the Jivatma, which is the prime mover, and that is where the self is. That is what our self is. So this becomes the structure, and understand in terms of Samadhi, what exactly, how we understand this. You see, if we take an example that we are in a house, all of us, we have a house which is of 7 floors. So we have a ground floor, first, second, third, right up to the 7th floor. So we have ground floor and 6 floors above it. The ground floor is like our physical body. Let's try to understand. The first floor is our astral body. The second floor is our mental body. The ground floor has 5 windows and they represent our senses through which we can see the outside world. But there are no windows on the first floor and the second floor. We are self-contained there. And we can only move. This is the normal human. We can only move on the ground floor, the first floor, and the second floor. That is our movement. Either we move in the body, or we have emotions, or we have thinking. That is all that we have. We can't go beyond it. So we are limited to the ground floor, the first floor, and the second floor, to the physical body, to the astral body, and the mental body. That is our limitation in terms of consciousness, our experience. We cannot go to the third floor, which is the causal body. So Samadhi is a process in which consciousness moves or makes its way from the second floor to the third floor, from the mental body to the causal body. This movement, this ability to go from the second floor to the third floor is called Samadhi. For normal humans who are starting on this line of Samadhi. So Annie Besant says that Samadhi is a process or a way in which wherever you are placed or in whatever floors that you can move in, you move to another floor higher than what you can achieve. So for us, the normal humans, we can only go up to the second floor or to the mental body. For us, Samadhi would mean movement from mental to causal. Now supposing there is another person who can go to the causal body, who has achieved this. For him now, his normal consciousness is normally moving in the causal body, mental body, astral body, and the physical body. That means ground floor, first floor, second floor, third floor. Now easily he can move in all these four floors. For such a person, the Samadhi now would be from movement from the causal body to the buddhic body. So all these subsequent movements, mental to causal, it is also called Samadhi. When we can easily access the causal body, then because we can't access the buddhic body, for us, the next Samadhi would be movement from causal body to the buddhic body. And for those who can move, those Hansas that we call the initiates, those who can move right from the buddhic body to the physical body, their consciousness cannot go up to the Atmic body. For them, the Samadhi now would be to move from the buddhic body to the Atmic body. And those who are all of these bodies yet have not reached to the monad, for them, their Samadhi would be, next Samadhi would be when they move from the Atmic body to the monad or the Jivatma. We can see in this slide that the normal human being has movement in physical body, astral body, and mental body. The consciousness, our awareness is only limited to these three. So for us, the first occur when there will be movement of consciousness to the causal body. In the causal body, then from once we are very familiar with the causal body and can function easily in the causal body, then we will make another attempt and then go into the buddhic body. Then that will be the second Samadhi. As you can see, this will be the second Samadhi. We don't call it second Samadhi because the process remains the same, as we will go further and understand what is the process. But first, let us get an outline. This Samadhi would be now for this person who can easily go in the causal body, access the causal body, live in these four bodies. For that person, the next Samadhi would be to enter into the buddhic body. His effort would be to attain Samadhi so that he can enter into the buddhic body. Once that is achieved, and now the person can easily move in the buddhic, causal, mental, astral, and physical bodies. For such a person, now the next process of Samadhi would involve movement from the finally, the final Samadhi would be when the movement will occur and will go back to the monad from where the whole human journey started. And that is the point that we call self-realization or the end of human journey. Now, friend, was an overview, and this concept is important to understand. Patanjali, when he wrote the sutras of Patanjali, his sutras, he divided into four sections. The first section has been called Samadhi Path itself. The Samadhi Path, that is the section on Samadhi, where he explains all these things. So now I would request you, if there is any query, a question. If there are any questions, any doubts regarding what I have gone through till now, kindly raise them so that we can proceed further. This concept should be clear. The whole reason of taking this talk today is to make this concept clear. So till now, if something is not clear, kindly ask now.
You said that second Samadhi is Buddhi consciousness.
Yes, brother. First movement, you see, you and I, concrete thinking. We can only visualize in images. We have not gone into the abstract thinking. We are not moving in the causal world. Where are causal bodies? We have no access towards the causal consciousness. We don't have the ability to see all the incarnations. Hemanji, you want to say something?
Yes, sir, Rajiv ji.
Yes.
How, in the meditation will come to know whether he is in the first floor, second floor, and third floor?
You see, we'll go into that further, but I think I'll tell you this thing. Like I was just saying, if I can now, my consciousness can move into the causal body, the ego, from which all the cycles of incarnation they start, then that is called the causal body, where all the then we call it karmashe, where all the my sanchit karma, everything is there. Previous lives, everything. So there will be a drastic change, an expansion of consciousness, an unfoldment of powers of the consciousness. There will be no doubt left. So the question would not be how one would come to know. The question would be that, is it that I am not deluding myself or hallucinating that I have reached somewhere? So if I have some sounds or some visions, I may think I have reached. But it is not that. What they say is that one is able to see very process through which, when one goes through the Samadhi, he goes through a cloud. As we'll go further, then we'll find out. We'll come to know about it. So, any other question? Divakar ji, your question was answered? Okay. Now, so we'll go further.
That is clear.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's clear.
Now, we'll go further. Till now, what we have understood is that Samadhi is a process in which our consciousness, which is limited to wherever it is, right now it is limited to the physical body, to our emotions, to our concrete logical thinking. So it is the movement of consciousness or the expansion of consciousness to another level we are currently. So if I have, let us say, 7 rooms in my house and I can only move in the 3 rooms, I now have, through this process of Samadhi, which I will just explain what happens there, what needs to be done. If I can access from the 3rd to the 4th room, then I have undergone an expansion of consciousness. My consciousness expands into another region and there is a different type of experience. The solar system has been made in such a way that whenever another type of level is accessed, which we have called here as the higher mental or the causal level, then there is a change in the dramatic change in the consciousness itself. The person comes to know. There is nobody who's going to tell you that this is what has happened. There is a dramatic change. Not only is there a dramatic change, those a limited number, they also come to know, and they automatically contact such people and guide them further. Now, let us now go to this process, how to do it. So we have understood now, Samadhi means this process of movement into a higher consciousness. How to do this? So what we have to do is, first of all, have to there are two aspects to it, and to make it easy, I will say that the yogi or the aspirant has to collect his whole consciousness, his whole awareness, and bring it to a point. So we can call it as concentration onto a point, and then on that point one will be so concentrated, which we have chosen, one becomes one, that yogi, the aspirant, becomes one in consciousness with that point. That point meaning anything. It could be a picture in the mind, a sound, any concept, it doesn't matter what it is. Once one is one pointed, or as it is called, is in dhyan or in meditation, in communication, the whole of the consciousness object which one has himself chosen and can be with that object whenever one wants to be with that object, meaning that mind is now practically under control, then one achieves what is called Sampragyata Samadhi, or which Annie Besant has called meditation with seed. Supposing I choose a flower and I put the flower in front of me, and then I concentrate on that, close my eyes, bring that flower in my mind, visualize it, keep it on that flower, my whole consciousness, so that everything else fades away, nothing else is left, only the flower is left, and I and the flower are two only left, and now I have achieved what is called Sampragyata Samadhi. Now to do that, it requires a lot of practice, because the mind is scattered. And because the mind is scattered, therefore, to be able to come to this point is a big, she says it takes several lives, basically. So, but one has to start somewhere. Or what she calls meditation with seed, then, or Sampragyata Samadhi, then focus at that place where that object was. The whole of the attention, whole of the alertness fully should be there where now there is no object. That area in which there is no object, only you are with the whole of your attention, is like I am on my second floor, right at that point of the entrance to the third floor. I am in my house of 7 rooms, right at the door from the third room to the fourth room, and standing there. Beyond this, one cannot do anything. And this thing where the object is dropped, but the whole of the attention is focused there, has been called Asampragyata Samadhi, or meditation without seed. So now there is nothing more that a sadhak or an aspirant can do further. He has to just day by day, every day, just remain there. Then the consciousness on its own will pass from this floor, from the mental body floor, second floor to the third floor, or as we said, from the third room to the fourth room. The door will open on its own and one will pass through. But this passage has been called as the cloud. She calls it a cloud. Because as the consciousness moves from that which we know as the mental plane to another higher plane, the higher mental or the causal plane, there will become a point which is the point of no zone. And at that point, the consciousness, what one will experience is just like somebody is there in a cloud. There is nothing there. There is everything which is hazy. But she says you have to persist. You have to be there. Do not go back. Do not get disheartened. Do not leave this practice. Be there with full alertness. Remain there. The cloud will vanish as the entry of the consciousness will take place into the next plane. It is also called in our literature as Dharma Mega Cloud. But she just calls it a cloud because no need to complicate things. So this becomes a cloud. So movement, I have collected, I have practiced, and I am now able to concentrate on one object, so much so that there is nothing else which is left. I am in a kind of a trance. We hear of Paramahansa, Ramakrishna Paramahansa, that when he used to go into trance after seeing Ma, Kali Ma, and he would go into that Bhav Samadhi, that was this meditation with seed. You become oblivious to everything else. So once you are there, then she says the seed has to be dropped. Then one has to remain there till the time one enters into the higher region. This is the whole process in which Samadhi can be executed. If we don't like the word Samadhi, it doesn't matter. But it becomes easier because one word can explain the whole process. And therefore, if we understand this word Samadhi in this context, the way our senior, elder sister, Dr. Annie Besant has taught us, based on what the sutras of Patanjali have already said, validating the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, calling it the chief treatise of yoga, calling yoga as Samadhi, calling yoga as the science of sciences, I don't think there is any other doubt that we should use this word Samadhi, provided we know what it means. So this is the whole process of meditation and Samadhi. And this has to be repeated. So right now, I'm in the third room, I'm on the mental body, the second floor. I have to go towards it, because for me, my movement has to be towards the causal body. But supposing some of our friends are here who might be there in the causal plane already, for them, now they have to repeat this process of Samadhi in the causal plane because they are on the causal plane, on the floor, third floor, they are in the fourth room, they have to go to the fifth room or they have to go to another higher floor. They will now take up an object of that floor. So in the higher mental body, the object is an idea, an abstract idea. So that idea has to be chosen and one has to focus on that. Once one is totally focused on one idea of that, because that object is of that region, one has to go from that region to another higher region. So the object has to be of that region, and then from that one has to drop that and then proceed towards the Buddhic plane or the Buddhic body. Then from the Buddhic to the Atmic, and from the Atmic to the monad. Now, Yoga Sutras, they talk about these regions as Vitark, Vitark meaning the mental body area, Vichar meaning the causal body area, Ananda meaning Buddhic body area, and Asmita meaning the Atmic body area. So, when Yoga Sutras, you will, in Sampraketa, in the sutra that where the Samadhi is talked about, Sampraketa Samadhi, then these four words come, Vitark, Vichar, Ananda, and Asmita. And they represent our mental body, causal body, Buddhic body, and our, not exactly bodies, but we can take them as equivalents, and the Atmic body. So this way, this is the whole process which has to be repeated till we reach the monadic level, the Jivatma, our own real self. And the human journey then gets completed. So friends, now again I will ask if there is any question regarding this concept which I've just spoken about.
Dr. Saab, going into trance and becoming one with everything, plants, flowers, is it a state of samadhi?
Brother, samadhi is a process, and trance only means that one is oblivious of the lower bodies.
Yes.
So when one is trying to achieve samadhi or movement towards a new place, so let's take another example. I'm trying to climb Mount Everest. So my whole focus would be on my equipment, the weather, the path that I have to take, and how I have to go, then where I have to camp, and then I have to start the next day, what things I have brought with myself, how to make the food there. All those things are in my focus. Once I reach Mount Everest, then I can look down. And supposing I'm now able to move down and up easily from Mount Everest to the base camp and from base camp to Mount Everest. I'm just giving an example. So instead of Mount Everest, you can take any building or any place where access is not given easily. You have earned the right to go to a particular place. Let's suppose you have the 10-year visa of United States of America. Now you can go travel anytime you want to travel there, go there and come back. Now, the same thing happens here. When the process of samadhi is taking place for the first time and the person is focusing all the energy in getting himself into that place, then one goes into a trance-like state where one is oblivious of everything else except that object. Therefore, this word trance has been used. And then when one goes into the other plane, then also one is oblivious of other things because one is still there and one has opened up into another area. But when the consciousness becomes, when it becomes very easy for our consciousness to move up and down from that area which we have now accessed. So let's say the fourth room, which was close to us, that door has opened, and now that door is so easily opened and closed that we can at any time go in and out. Then for that sadhak, that area is now easily accessible and has become a normal day affair. So let us take an example. When J. Krishnamurti had the experience, this Buddhic body experience, when he became one with everything, and he spoke about it, and he wrote it in a letter and gave it to send it to Annie Besant, and he said, I am the road, I am the car which is moving on the road, I am the tire, I am the man who is cutting the grass, I am the grass, I am the cutter, I am the blade which is cutting the grass. So there was this oneness, Aham Brahmasmi, where there is consciousness united with everything. In that state, one was oblivious of the body in which one was. In that sense, this was a trance. But once when it becomes a very common day affair, we are so used to it, then the consciousness is able to function on all the bodies. There is no need for a trance. We don't call it a trance anymore now, because now you can easily move up and down. So in that sense, samadhi is actually only a process of accessing the area of another area of consciousness which was not accessible earlier to us. Once we are able to do it repeatedly, then we do not call it samadhi anymore, because we are already in our waking consciousness, we have that access. So let's take C.W. Leadbeater. When he says that I can see the Buddhic, I can easily shift, they have said it in this way, that just like when you focus on an object which is near to you, then the others become blurred behind. And when you focus on something which is, let's say, 50 feet away, then the objects which are in front of us, they become blurred. The same thing happens with these people. When they are focusing on a particular area, let's say the causal body, the causal plane, then the others, they become blurred. And when they are in the Buddhic, then the others, they become blurred. So their focus of consciousness keeps on changing, but they are easily, all these areas are easily accessible. For them now, the term trance and samadhi do not mean anything, because it has now become one for them, easy for them. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, yes, very, very well explained.
Anybody else who has any doubt regarding till what we have understood? So now I'll go further a little bit, and time is also running out. I'll again present the PowerPoint. Can we see this, please? Pranaya-ji, we can see this?
Yes, 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 very much visible.
Okay, so this is how in the diagram given up here is Sampragyata Samadhi. This is from Dr. I.K. Temini, The Science of Yoga, the commentary on the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. He has explained it in this way, that the Sampragyata Samadhi in the lower plane occurs first, then it goes to the Asampragyata Samadhi, then there is a central point, the point of the cloud, then the consciousness moves into the next higher plane, and from there the process has to be repeated again. One has to then achieve Sampragyata Samadhi in the next plane, and this keeps on repeating itself. So therefore Samadhi becomes Sampragyata and Asampragyata, which leads to Dharma Mega, and then it leads to the entry into the next body. Now we'll come to two more slides, important slides, again taken from Introduction to Yoga, and these are the words of Annie Besant. She says there are 9 obstacles to yoga, because we should know what are the things which will hinder us, stop us, be restrictive, we have to be careful about. These are our weaknesses, we have to remove them. They are the obstacles to yoga. All these 9 have been mentioned in Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. The first is disease. Even Buddha says if you don't have a healthy body, you can't really go on this path. So disease has to be eliminated. By disease, it means that even if one is suffering from something, it should not become an obstacle for the ability to meditate, to do the essential part which is required to achieve Samadhi. Second is mental laziness, then physical laziness. I'll go fast over this. Mental laziness, physical laziness, then there is doubt whether I'm doing the right thing, whether this path is okay or not. So when there is doubt, there is no clarity or conviction, then that becomes an obstacle. One will not be able to put 100% of one's energy into that direction. Then there is carelessness or inaccuracy. Inaccuracy is, it's like if you're trying to make a dish, and let's say we're trying to make a cup of tea, and we are so inaccurate, we put in 5 teaspoons or let's say half a jar of sugar into it and say it's okay, how does it matter? No, you will not get the right kind of tea. So when we are inaccurate, we are not careful, then that becomes a big obstacle to yoga. I'm not going to elaborate. All these can be elaborated. That itself will become a talk of 45 minutes to 1 hour. Then there is worldly mindedness. Of course, if my mind is always, when I'm trying to sit for meditation or trying to go on this path of Samadhi yoga, but my mind gets turned towards the worldly things, it is directed, it is so engrossed in those that I am unable to bring my mind back, then it becomes very difficult. Then wrong notions, wrong beliefs. She says it's a great obstacle, thinking wrongly about things. So if I say only if I sit in the eastern direction while doing meditation, only then it will be successful. I put conditions and my own belief systems into. You have heard of that story when there was a sadhu who had a problem because he had only 2, undergarments. One he used to wash and one he used to wear. So the one he would wash and put for drying, and when he used to go into this meditative state, some mouse or rat would come and bite into that. So he kept a cat for that. So in this way, it became for his disciples or those who were his followers that one should have a cat when you are going to meditate. Something like this. So if you have mistaken ideas, it becomes a great obstacle. What about missing the point? So here she says that if we make certain things, like I said, it is part or same like wrong belief systems, those things which are not important, we make them important. Then it becomes a problem. So one has to be very careful. Then there is instability, and she says if you are not stable, your mind fluctuates a lot, gets distracted easily, moves in a great range from one extreme to another extreme, then the path of yoga is difficult. Then what are the points which will lead to success in yoga? So there are three qualities which she talks about, and the first is strong desire. She says you must have conviction that you will ultimately succeed and the resolution to go on until you succeed. It must be desire so ardent and so firmly rooted that obstacles only make it more keen. Strong desire gives us energy. Strong desire, the desire part in us is the one which moves. It is the one which gives us power to move or to make things happen. So she says, like Mumukshatva, that the burning desire for liberation. So here she says strong right types of desires are important. Without strong desire, a yogi cannot achieve, though he may move in the right direction, but will not be able to achieve samadhi. Then she goes on to say that strong desires, if you don't have strong desires, then you have to create them by memory and imagination. She says only we have two tools for that. One is memory and one is imagination. We imagine that we have that strong desire, that we want that particular thing to happen. And then we remember all the right things and how when we achieve what will happen. So we use these two tools and we use thinking ability to generate, develop, maintain desire and to flare it up. And she says that most of the yogis who succeed, when obstacles come in their way, they don't take them as obstacles and say, oh, what has happened? What will I do? Why did this have to happen? They say, very good. Now I know that I have to do more to overcome this obstacle. So she says obstacles only make it more keen for that yogi. It adds fuel to the fire, to the burning desire. Second thing she says that if you don't have a desire, strong desire, then you cannot develop a strong will, because will is only desire transmuted. What do you mean by transmuted? Means changed, transformed. Just like lead is transformed into gold, desire has to be transformed into will. The desire which is there is the same energy which becomes will when it is inward directed. Desire on the path of forth going, outward going, is towards outer objects. But when we direct it inward, she says, then it becomes will. To the objects that we want to create, to the desires that we want to have in ourselves, then it becomes will. That is the will. So if she says, if your will is weak, then you have to make it strong. And to do that, we have to do one thing at a time. She even gives a hint that you take up one thing and you say, I will achieve this. Once you are able to do that, supposing you have to wake up at 5 in the morning, then try to do it. And once you have done it for 1 week, then you say, okay, now I will try to do for another week. This way you keep on increasing the time. And in this way you try to, this is how she has given example. Then the third is a keen and broad intelligence. You cannot control your mind unless you have a mind to control. This is a quote from Annie Besant herself. All these lines are from her book, Introduction to Yoga. Therefore, you must develop your mind. You must study. If you have read one serious book properly, then by slow reading and much thinking, your intelligence will be nurtured and your mind grows strong. So, proper study, how to study, she has given it in her book Thought Power and elsewhere. Once the mind is properly developed, the mental body is properly developed, that plus the will, plus the energy coming from desire, which has now become will, these are the qualities which are essential for yoga. Of course, these are tapas and virya and a few other things which samadhi pragya.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, so this is a summary slide of what we have done till now. We see right from the top that we do dharana, that is concentration, then we do meditation, and then we enter into the process of samadhi, that which we have talked about. So the first samadhi that happens is at the level of the mental body, which has been called by Patanjali as vitak. So it is called savitak, and then there is nirvitak. So there is asampragyata. This is the area where the lower mental body here, or the manomaya kosha, as per the Vedantic classification here, we cover and we enter into the process samadhi. We cross this and enter into the next level, which is the causal body or the Vijnanmaya kosha. And at there again we go through sampragyata samadhi, asampragyata samadhi, and then we again enter into another, that is the buddhic vehicle or the anandamaya kosha. And then there again we undergo through the same process of sampragyata, asampragyata samadhi, and then we enter into the atmic vehicle. And from there we undergo sampragyata samadhi, and finally we enter into asampragyata samadhi and enter into the monadic level. Now there is another term which is called sabij samadhi and nirbij samadhi. So sabij samadhi means all the samadhis right up to the atmic level. They have been called sabij samadhi because some object or the other has been used at some level. So some sort of bij was being used, no matter which level it was. But right at the end, just before the entry into the monad or the jivatma, there is no further, there will be no any seed. Therefore, that particular samadhi, asampragyata samadhi, which happens there, has been called as nirbij samadhi. So with this, we come to the end of this presentation, and I want to thank all of you for patient hearing, listening, and participating. Thank you very much. Taneja ji?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. And if anyone has any questions, he's most welcome. So we are very learned listeners here. I will just request them one by one to unmute their mic.
Rajiv ji.
Yes, Hemanji, please.
Hanji. Sir, my question is it possible for any seeker to enter into the higher planes, not with the help of seat, but by just being aware of what is happening around?
Yes, there is. Yes, that is a way, but not given the term as samadhi here in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. Even Annie Besant, when she talks about, she says that depending on your temperament, you have to select your seat. So, and so supposing what you've talked about is another method in which one becomes so completely aware, the consciousness is so aware, it becomes like a point. It becomes like a point which is aware of everything which is moving around it, in the body, in the emotions, and in the thoughts, so that it becomes so aware that everything just drops. And then there is a shift towards the higher. This is what has been given by J. Krishnamurti and others. So that is in Zen, Dzogchen in Tibet. So they have talked about in this method also. This is also another method in which the mind then becomes still. So the whole thing is that the mind should become still enough for the consciousness to move from this still area to another area. So when the body, physical body is stable, then the emotions are stable, And when the thinking is also stable, then what does the consciousness do? It can't do anything further. So it goes up, goes deeper, and enters into another level. So that there is this method also not discussed under the terms of Samadhi as such. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, thank you सर. सर एक सिंपल चीज और पूछनी थी. हायर प्लेन्स में ऐसा कौन सा प्लेन पे फिजिकल का एहसास नहीं होता? That one is not aware of his physical body.
You don't even have to go to the higher plane. If one achieves asana, if one is able to sit in a posture for some period of time and just be focused on something within the mind, one is oblivious of the body. This happens even now. When you daydream so much and you're so focused on something which you're thinking, you don't know about your body anymore. You're in that particular thought, isn't it? It
Yes,
happens.
sir, yes.
It happens
Yes.
so you don't have to be in any samadhi for that.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm seeing Shinde sir is also here, so I will just request him to say a few words. Please, sir.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Namaskar, Shinde ji. Namaskar.
Namaskar, sir.
नमस्ते नमस्ते गुप्ता जी, बहुत अच्छा बताया. Wonderful talk. Really, I am appreciating your way of explanation, and also you are a good orator. Wonderfully explained, and you have explanatory power. I really delighted by your talk, very systematically.
Thank you.
And you explained Theosophy very well, very well, very well. What Hemant has asked just now, something how we can raise to the subtler planes, or when we forget the physical plane. Actually, as above, so below. So the above, what we know, our higher self, Atma Buddhi Manasa, it is reflected in our personality. And Atma is connected to the physical. Buddhi is connected to the emotional. And higher manas is connected to the lower manas. Once we understand this connection, then perhaps we can contact to the higher self. This is what Hemant asked. We can do such kind of efforts. Efforts are needed. To attain the effortless effort state, lot of efforts are needed in the initial stage. Otherwise, that stage of samadhi won't come. Gupta ji has explained very nicely. In Theosophy, we are asked to remember three things: to know, to dare, and finally to be silent. So to know, you have to do hard study. Unless you study, you cannot know. So study, that effort is needed. And then after study, we have to dare to accomplish that what you have understood, to bring it in your life. And finally, after bringing in your life, you have to be silent. So our roles are three roles actually. We can say, we can play a role of aspirant, and that is to be the pupil. When you want to be the pupil, you have to play the role of aspirant. You must aspire the higher things. All desires must be converted into aspiration. Then, this is what to know, to aspire. And we must play that role of aspiration, role of to be the pupil of the master. Master is our higher self. Then the second role of daring, that is, we must lead our life. Our own life we must lead in that way. So this is play the acquired role of knowing. Whatever you have acquired, that must be converted into knowing. Whatever you have aspired, that must be converted into knowing. And after being the mentor, after knowing all this, you have to be silent, play the role of, or you play the expired role. You have to become silent then. So, we have to play 3 roles. One is the role of pupil, second is the role of leading, and third is the role of mentor, that is expired role, that is being silent. So Gupta ji, what you said, I understood very well. Dharana, dhyana, and then the samadhi. All these must become sayam. Dharana, when dharana gets perfected, it converts into dhyana. When dhyana gets converted, it converts into samadhi. And all these 3, when they become one, then actually we are a state of self-realization. So it is like Atma Bodha, Atma Jagran, and Atma Jnana, self-realization. This is what we understand. And as it is said, if you have time, just I want to say what Krishnamurti said about this samadhi. What are the distractions? See, the first distraction of the mind. Second distraction is the fear or worry of following the rules. Third is, we are definitely irritated and get anger. So anger is the third distraction. And the last, fourth one, we cannot be silent, because after achieving, we get that pride. And the pride makes us, again, not silent. So Krishnamurti once said a joke. As a joke he said, but it is very important to contemplate. He said, 4 monks enthusiastically went to have a silent retreat. They have goodwill, all practices were there, and they started silent retreat. They began with enthusiasm. No one said a word for the whole day. But by the nightfall, it is said candle began to flitter and went out. When the candle began to flitter and went out, the very first monk, by his mind got distracted, and he said, "Oh no, the candle is not." So this is how candle is out. Then, listening to this, second monk said, who was worried about following the rules, and he said, "We are not supposed to speak." And third one got irritated by anger and said, "What did you do? Break the silence." And fourth one was actually silent, but his pride did not allow him be silent. And he said, "Oh, I am the only one who has not spoken." See, this is how the human mind is very difficult to be silent. Therefore, in Theosophy, we are said to know, to dare, and to be silent. And Samadhi states are first Atma Bodha, then Atma Jagran. Atma Bodha is dhyana. Actually, it's not. Atma Bodha is dharana. We must aim at Atma Bodha, dharana. Then Atma Jagran is dhyana. And Atma Jnana is samadhi. So this is how, these are the steps we have to carry on. Brother Gupta has explained very nicely. And actually I am inspired to tell all this because of his talk. This is how it is the result of that. I also came these thoughts to my mind, which I shared with all of you. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Yeah, I see Dr. Sasangi is also here. If he is here, please, I will request him to say a few words. But he just told me a puja is going on his home. He may not be available. So,
Yes, thank you, Brother Taneja ji. Excellent talk, a very thought-provoking talk. और ये जो पातंजलि योग दर्शन है, समाधि है, ऐसा विषय है. वी कीप ऑन डिस्कसिंग इट टाइम टू टाइम, और हम सब लोगों ने इसको अपनी अपनी तरह से समझा हुआ है. बेसिक बुक थियोसॉफी की हमारी साइंस ऑफ योग है, which is written by डॉक्टर I.K. तैमिनी, और हमारे ब्रदर राजीव जी की टॉक जो थी उसी पे बेस्ड है, उसी को पढ़ के हमने समझा हुआ है. सो आई कॉन्ग्रेचुलेट हिम फॉर डिस्कसिंग सच एन इम्पॉर्टेंट टॉपिक and enlightening us in his way and in the way of Dr. I.K. Taimani from the book of Science of Yoga to understand dharana, dhyan and samadhi, and going beyond that in a very practical way. So once again, I congratulate Brother Rajiv and thanks all of our members who have attended this lodge meeting. Dhanyavad.
Thank you, brother.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Dhanyavad, sir. I don't think anybody has say something. So thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rajiv Gupta ji. So nice of you for the excellent position on this abstract subject. You explained very simply and about various philosophy in which yoga finds a place since ancient times. So actually, Patanjali has also described various forms of yogas which we discussed today, and brother this Shindeji also supplemented. So we are already short of time. However, I would like to just quote a saying from Encyclopedia Britannica, which I was just reading a few days ago. It also finds a prominent space for this yoga. It says, and Samadhi, it says Samadhi is a state of profound and utterly absorptive contemplation of absolute that is undisturbed by desire, anger, or any other ego-generated thought or emotion. It is a state of joyful calm, which rightly Dr. Rajiv Gupta ji explained today. So I thank him once again and for this his excellent talk and sparing time for us. And we expect he will be giving time to us in future also. And next week, continuing the same talk on the same subject, I mean to say, Dr. Sasangi ji will be giving a talk on Vibhuti Pada at same time. You all are requested to join. And now I would like to conclude the meeting by reciting Shanti Mantra of and so Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kasyat Dukha Bhave Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you. Thank you. The meeting is over now.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.